much, John, for getting us
You're
started.
welcome. You're welcome.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for the March series of the IT Academy webinar. Once again, I'm Melissa Leonard, and Jennifer Metcalf is also joining me. I think most of you guys already know us by now. So what we want to do today is we want to spend a little bit of time going through with you guys information that you need to know for testing, well, specifically certification testing. We know that lots of you guys will be getting ready to do testing in April and some in May, some just for certification, and then others of you are also doing EOPA testing. So we want to take a little bit of time today to go through some things that we think will help you. Okay. All right, so today we are going to spend some time talking about certifications. This is just a little image here we placed on the slide of a picture of one of the certificates that you can print out if your students earn certification, and that comes straight from the Certiport website. And so today I'm going to talk to you about Certiport and how to get your students registered with Certiport. I'm also going to take you to the Certiport website and show you how helpful that website is, because it contains lots of really great information. They've had a recent update to their website, and so I think that you guys will find a lot of that information to be very helpful. Also, today we're going to talk about the certification requirements and some of the changes that have taken place, specifically with the master level certifications. And then Jennifer's going to discuss with you guys some test taking tips, and then finally we're going to conclude with some helpful resources, as always. Okay, so I'm going to take you guys to the Certiport website. I'm actually going to just get out of this PowerPoint and show you my desktop because I have this already pulled up. Here we go. If you'll just bear with me, I want to scroll through this website and show you some of the great resources that are here for you. At the top of the website, it specifically talks about certifications and basically which certification is associated with which class that your students might be in. And then also it details the types of jobs or careers that your students might want to go into if they receive that certification. And so I was thinking that some of you guys might find that useful when you are trying to get your students excited about certification. You could even turn to the Certiport website here to get some of these statistics, or I should say just some facts here that go along with the different tests. And you can click on them here for more information. All right. So if you scroll down a little bit in the website, there is a setup portion that you can go to, and the setup basically just steps you through step 1, 2, and 3, how to get your lab set up and how to get registered. I should say not lab, but how to get registered to be able to start using Certiport in your classroom, because you will need, as a teacher, you will need to go in and register, and then your students will need to register as well. So this is some of the steps that you would follow here. And then right below here is some of the information that your IT staff would need to know for setting up your lab. So specifically Console 8, you'll see there's some information here about Gmetrics, if your school has Gmetrics, and just all the things that your IT staff would need to know so that you can successfully use certification testing at your school. At our school, our IT person, she actually has access to this website, and she did all these updates and all these things for us. And so for us, having this available is a great resource. All right, so I think this is great too. I think that this update to the website, this in particular, really stood out to me. They have information here as far as communicating with parents and also your faculty and staff and students for getting them excited about certification. And so here there's a sample press release, letters that you can send out to staff and then also to parents. And so you could easily just click on this and then personalize it for you and your school and then send that out. So that makes that part really easy. More information on promotion. For you to request your classroom marketing kit, that comes along when you first start using the IT Academy, but if you need that, you can click here. The marketing materials, certification programs, everything that you need is just right here on the Certiport website. All right, so if you're looking for more information to share with your students regarding competitions with certifications. This is where you can go to obtain that information. So there's information here regarding the World Championship, National Championship, I mean everything that you can think of. And so when I was testing at my school, I actually was not aware of all these different competitions, and I didn't find out until my students were invited to compete. And so if you share this information with your students ahead of time, that would probably generate some excitement in your classroom as well. So information here about that. And then if your students are interested in pursuing additional certifications, there's information here about master's certifications as well. And I'm going to go into detail here in a few minutes about the master's certification requirements. Okay, so the Teach It, Test It, basically the IT Academy and Certiport, they like to promote Teach It, Test It. And what they like for us to do is they like for us to teach the skills, for the students to master those skills, and then immediately test students. They feel, and we know this as well as teachers, that the sooner that you can test students over the material, the better. And so lots of you are fortunate enough to where you are in block scheduling, where you can do this in your classroom. You can teach something, and then because of the length of time that you have those students in that block, you can go ahead and test those students. Unfortunately, that's not the case at my school. We're on 50-minute class periods, and so for that reason, I cannot just teach it and test it. I have to schedule my testing out. And so normally that's limited to one time per semester, occasionally two if I can really work it out, but normally just one time a semester. All right, and then right here on the Certiport website are key links to the IT Academy program. So if you're looking for Microsoft IT Academy specifically, here's the link to the member website. This is a link to a ribbon activity for Word 2010. Coincidentally, Jennifer and I also had a ribbon activity that we used in a lot of our classes that we created for using with our students. It's an excellent activity, and the students enjoyed it. It's something different that you probably don't normally do in your computer classes, and so if you haven't seen that activity before, I highly suggest that you take a look at that. Also, the resource mapping documents, 2010 and 2013. In a later slide, I'm going to detail these resource mapping documents and show you where to find them on the OneDrive. But if you're not going to the OneDrive and you happen to be on the Certiport website, they're located here. Basically, these just map to the standards of the test or the test objectives. It maps out all of the IT Academy resources, such as MOAC and online learning, etc. So you know where to turn when you're preparing your students. And then this is a Microsoft IT Academy First Steps document. This is more for people who are just beginning to use the IT Academy. It steps them through logging into the member site and then also beginning to use each of those benefits in their classroom. So if you know a teacher who is just getting started, I would suggest that you show them this document. And then, of course, this is the link to the Microsoft IT Academy OneDrive, where you can find lots of helpful resources. Jennifer and I always like to point teachers to that. All right, so more information here. This is for Gmetrics, the Administrator's Guide, and then also there's information here for using Gmetrics along with MOAC, which I think is great. I think Gmetrics is a powerful tool as well as MOAC, so I think this is great that they have this document here. All right, more information about getting certified, exam instructions, also the objectives that are on the test. I think it's great that Certiport has all this information on their website now. It makes it so easy to find. And then here's information for the testing day. Specifically how to get your lab ready for testing and also how to get your students ready for testing. They have a PDF document here that you can turn to when you're getting your students registered with Certiport so that they can take a test. Jennifer and I also have a PowerPoint that we use in our classrooms to get students registered with the website so that they could start testing. And so I'm going to show that to you here in a minute, but if you'd rather just look at this PDF file and do something on your own, this is where you would go to do that. This is for just testing to make sure that you're ready to test in your lab. Oh, this is very important, and I want to spend a little bit of time pointing this out because this kind of caught us off guard the first time we tested. This exam accommodation request, and I have it pulled up here. I'm just going to click over. If you have students in your class who are going to be testing who need to receive accommodations, this is the form that you fill out. So it's so important because you want all of your students to be successful, and we know that some of your students might need accommodation, specifically extended time on the exam. And so I suggest that you do this as soon as possible if you haven't already done so. You need to download this document, and the first thing that you need to do is you need to fill out Section 1. Okay, now Section 1 is their name, and then notice you have to fill in their Certiport username or ID. This is where it comes in, or it's super helpful that your Certiport username or ID is a common format for all of your students so that you don't have to spend that time searching for their ID. And then you can just fill in this information here at the top. That part's easy. But then notice at the bottom here that you have to have a parent's signature. So send this home, get the parent to sign it, and then get that back. Now we all know that that can take several days, so keep that in mind. On page 2 is where you would need to indicate the names of the exams for which your students are going to need accommodations. So if you already know which exams your students are going to be taking, that's where you would list that. Now underneath here is where you list the accommodation or the adjustment. And so extended time is here, so they're going to do standard time plus 100%. And then in this area is where you would document the disability. And so we actually give this to our special ed coordinator at our school, and she fills this part out because we feel and she feels that she is better equipped and better informed to be able to fill this part out, and so we actually have our special ed director do this. Now keep in mind too, because I'm asking someone else to do this, this also takes a few days to complete. So once I give it to her, she'll usually get it back to me within a couple of days. And then on page 3 are guidelines for reasonable adjustments. They give you a brief, basically explaining to you what's going to happen here. And then if there's something that you need to submit, it is detailed here. Okay, one or more of the following documents must be submitted with the applicant's request form, and they list some things, documentation that you would need to submit. So this takes a while, and I also wanted to point out that here, please allow up to 10 business days for the review and processing of your request. So after you get this entire form filled out, after you have your special ed coordinator or whoever fill out the second page here, detailing why you need an adjustment, okay? And then also keep in mind that the parent has to sign and return it. So that right there could be a week or longer, okay, just those things. Then if you notice that it takes up to 10 days. So after you fax in this request to Certiport, it could be up to 10 days before they review and they process your request. So if you already know the date that you're going to be testing, I suggest you get this going as soon as possible. I want to say the longest that I've ever had to wait to get this form back was maybe 5 days, so 5 business days. But please plan accordingly because this is so important. You want those students who need accommodations to receive them. Okay, so back to the website. At the very bottom here, it talks about testing day, some common issues that you might experience, such as your exam freezing. What do? You could click here to find out that. And then also information here regarding exam retake policies. Okay, so at the bottom of this website, there's some great information here about recognizing success with your students. So this is the fun part. There is a sample press release, which I think is great. I spent a lot of time just trying to type up these press releases that we sent out to the newspapers and to our County Board of Education. And so you could take this and just personalize it. So also, if you're giving an award or if your students are downloading the, there's a logo, Microsoft certified logo that they can download, and so there's information about that. How to create a wall of fame, not flame, fame. Jennifer and I always had walls of fame outside of our classrooms and in the hallways at school and inside our classrooms, and so this is just an image of what another teacher's wall of fame looks like. Just information on how to celebrate and recognize with your students. Oh, this is the logo that I was talking about. There's a sample resume that has the information on it about Microsoft certification. I think that's great. You could turn your students here to this website and show them the sample resume if they are creating resumes in class and you know they have Microsoft certifications. You could show them this, also the sample cover letter. The Share My Certiport story, I suggest that you show this to your students. We showed this to our students, and we've had several students who have been highlighted with Show My Certiport story, and they've been highlighted on the Certiport website, and they've been recognized for their achievements, and so you might want to take a look at that. Okay, and at the bottom there is some important information for contacting. So that's the Certiport website, and as you can see, there is some great information on there. It has been updated recently, and I love all the information that's here. I love the new format. I think that you guys will find that to be a great resource in your classrooms. Okay, so let's keep going. So earlier, when I was talking about getting your students registered and ready to take a test, I mentioned that Jennifer and I have a PowerPoint that we use in our classrooms. Well, this is that PowerPoint, and as always, you guys will have access to this PowerPoint and anything else that I share with you. You'll have access to all of these things on the IT Academy OneDrive. It's in the same folder as all of the other webinars that we've done. So what I do with this PowerPoint is on the day that I'm having my students register, which I do weeks in advance of testing, normally at the beginning of the semester actually, I'll show this PowerPoint and the students step through the process with me of registering with Certiport. And so I tell them to go to the website, and you'll see here I have key parts of the website highlighted with instructions over to the right, and they all know that they cannot move forward until I tell them it's okay. So normally I don't let anyone in the class move forward until the entire class is on the same page on the website, and then I say, okay, now you can click here. So that's the first part of it. Here, there again, I'm telling them exactly what to click from the drop downs, exactly what to type in. Click next. This is very important. They need to type out their first name and last name. They need to make sure they spell it correctly, because any errors they make here will show up again, but they'll show up on their certification, their certificate that they get. So, and believe it or not, I've had it happen a couple of times with my students. And then here you'll notice too is where I tell them what to put down for their username and for their password. We have found that if you use a standard format for username and password, you can help your students later when they have questions. So in our case, we have the username always be our school email, and the password is always their birthday, and we tell them the format for their birthday. A 2-digit month, 2-digit day, and then a 4-digit year. And then also they have to do the security questions, and we tell them to pick things that they'll actually remember. We've even had them actually, in some cases, we've actually told them what to ask themselves for the question and what to put down for the answer. So, you know, you decide how you want to do that. Here's where they fill in their personal information. Sorry, I went a little quickly there. But you guys get it, okay? I'm just kind of going through the entire process with them, and I'm doing it with them in class. I'm walking around the classroom, I'm checking everyone's computers, and they all know that they cannot move ahead until I tell them that they can. And we're almost there. And you can see, too, this is a very long process, and so I would actually set aside a 50-minute class period to do this. I would take attendance, they do their little clock-in question in the beginning, and then we'd spend the entire time doing this, which I know seems a little crazy, but it does take that long. Okay, and so at the end of this, they should be able to go back to the Certiport website, and they should be able to log in and see their name listed at the top of the website. Okay, so that's the PowerPoint that we use in our classes, and you guys will have access to that. All right, so I do want to take just a second to go over with you guys the certification requirements for 2010 and also for 2013. I also want to point out that there are new requirements for master level certifications. Those have changed recently, so I'm going to take a little bit of time to go over that. Let's start with 2010. The specialist level exams are listed here at the bottom. Those are the same. Nothing has changed there. And you see that there's 7 different specialist level exams. And then there are 2 expert level exams. There's a Word expert and then also an Excel expert. Now, to obtain master level certification with Office 2010, there are 3 things that are required. The 3 required are Word Expert, Excel Expert, and then just PowerPoint. There is no PowerPoint Expert. A lot of people think that there is, but there is not. And then you have to choose one elective, so Access, Outlook, SharePoint, or OneNote. So all together, you have to complete and pass 4 of those exams, and 3 of those are the required. Now, let's look at certification for Office 2013. So the specialist level exams are listed at the bottom of this slide. Once again, the same 7 2013 specialist exams are listed there. Now, the expert level exams for 2013 are a little bit different. So there's 2 Word Expert exams. There's a Part 1 and then there's a Part 2. And then for Excel, there's also a Part 1 and a Part 2. Now, to obtain the master level certification with 2013, there are 3 different ways that you can get this, and they call it the 3 different tracks. So let's look at the Word track. If your students or you, if you're interested in obtaining the master level certification with Word, you have to complete Word Expert Part 1 and Part 2. And then you must also complete Excel, just Excel Specialist, not the expert level. And then you must choose one elective, okay, and the electives are listed there on the right. Now, if you would choose to do the Excel track, notice that you have to complete Excel Expert, both parts, Part 1 and Part 2, and then you must complete the Word Specialist exam, and then also one elective. Then, if you really feel like going for it, you could do the Expert track, and the Expert track is where you complete the Word Expert Part 1 and Part 2, as well as Excel Expert Part 1 and Part 2. The good thing about this particular track is that you do not have to choose an elective. So those are the new requirements for master certification. And in a minute, if you guys have any questions about that, I'll be happy to go back over that with you guys. One question that we get a lot too is, you know, how do we best prepare students for certification? Well, one thing is that you need to know the objectives, what your students are going to be tested over when they are taking the certification exam. One place that you can go to look for that is the MOAC book. In the appendix of the MOAC book, there is it's listed all of the objectives that are on the exam. You can also refer to the exam resource mapping document, and this is what I pointed out to you guys just a few minutes ago on the Certiport website. This document, and there's an image of it here at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to try to click on it. Basically, this document is on the IT Academy OneDrive, and it highlights for you each of the objectives that your students will be tested over, and then it also shows you where to look in, let's say, the MOAC book to help your students prepare for that objective. It also tells you lesson plans to look at. It shows you online learning. It also details for you which module you should look at. So let's see here. I'm going to click on Word so you guys can see. I know some of you guys have probably already seen this, but so here are the skills being measured. These are the technical tasks. They break them down into more technical. And then if you're, you know, trying to teach your students about formatting content and applying font and paragraph attributes, you would go to Lesson 3 of MOAC, or you would use Course 294 in e-learning, okay? Or if you just want to do a specific module, it tells you which module in online learning to do, and lesson plans, etc. So this is a great resource. And this is on the IT Academy OneDrive. It's linked here on the PowerPoint that I'm showing you guys, and it's also on the Certiport website that I just went over. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer now, and she's going to go over with you guys some test-taking tips that you can share with your students to ensure success in your classroom. And if we have any questions right now, too, we could probably take some questions.
Melissa, I wanted to ask the attendees that were here when they're actually testing. I want to know when everybody's testing. Do they type that into the question box?
Yes.
Can they type that in there? Can you just tell us if you're testing in April or May? I guess that's all I really want to know. Are you going to be testing in April or May? And if you'll type that in there, because that'll help us know how to help you in these webinars. So I'm going to take just a second. Melissa, you can switch to my screen if you'd like. You did a wonderful job. Thank you. And if you'll switch over to me, then I will get the PowerPoint ready on my side, and I will see when everybody's testing. Okay. Perfect. I've got one May. Let's see.
End of April and May.
All I see is May. All right. Can you see my screen now, Melissa?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can see it.
All right.
Okay, so I see end of April, a May, late April. It says likely May, but late April.
Because
getting set up for testing is difficult. There's a lot of planning that goes into that.
It is, and I almost wonder if everybody's doing it at the end of April, should I do test-taking tips in April with them, and we ask them about their questions for setting up their lab now?
I can ask them to see what they want.
Yeah, would y'all rather us do test-taking tips right now or do that in April right before you're going to test so that that'll be fresh on your mind with your students, and just do questions right now for getting your lab set up or getting your I guess your schedule in order for testing? Let us know. Just I see that most of you are testing after the next webinar, and we want to do what's best for you. So take a second.
Well, I'm looking right now, and our next webinar is scheduled for April the 22nd.
Right.
April the 22nd. So if you're already testing before that and you want to know test-taking tips, just let us know.
Peggy and Sheila, y'all are always here. Tell us what you need. Okay, so test-taking tips can wait, is what Kevin said, that they would benefit a little bit more from test center setup. So let me see. MOAC now registering for geometrics tomorrow. So Peggy's doing MOAC and she's registering for geometrics. You definitely, if your kids are testing, you definitely want to make sure that you're going to, if you don't have MOAC, that you're going to get that free 30-day download, and make sure that they do, I'm sorry, not MOAC, that they do geometrics with that free 30-day download before they take the test to become accustomed to the testing environment and see what the questions look like. I want to see what specific questions you have about setting up your lab, because this is something that if y'all are testing in April and in May, at the end of April and in May, it's really important that your lab's getting set up right now, because not only do you have to get the computers set up, but you also need to, if I were you, I would have a student come in and you proctor one student and make sure that that test is running the way it's supposed to. We have gone to several different schools to do the IT Academy workshops and have gotten there, and the testing software, the IQ Console 8, was not running properly because no one went in and tried it beforehand. You know, they thought it was running properly, but you've got to make sure that you test it beforehand. So, Kevin, if you have any specific questions about getting your lab set up, will you type them in for me? And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do really quickly just show you the test-taking tips for those of you who are going to test, you know, before the next webinar, and then I could probably reiterate them again to you next time just to make sure that you got them all for the kids. And then, Kevin, if you have any specific questions, if you will, type them in for me so we can help you with the testing center setup. Okay, so hello again, IT Academy teachers. You know, I'm Jennifer Metcalf, and I'm going to talk to you about the test-taking tips for both 2010 and 2013. Now, it's important to remember that both of these tests are 50 minutes long. However, 2010 is different from 2013. So I'm going to give you some tips for both versions. I think probably, I'm still looking at questions. I would kind of like to know which of you are testing in 2010 also. So if you're, okay, I've got one 2010 from Peggy, because I can skip 2013 if no one's testing in 2013. And then we can get to more specific questions. 2010 for Kevin. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start with 2010 then. All right, so 2010 is what Melissa and I test in. And you can see right here, here's a sample question from Office 2010. In 2010, the Microsoft Specialist exam is going to launch in your application. So if students are taking the Word exam, it's going to actually launch in the Word application on the computer. So you have to make sure that everything's closed out, you know, when the students start the test. And saying that, also, if you have geometrics, definitely make sure that everything's closed out before your students start geometrics, because it also launches in the actual application when students are practicing. So both of them launch in the application. The questions on the test will simulate to you what would you would need to accomplish in a given application. So there will be, in 2010, individual tasks or questions for the test taker to complete. For example, you might see, you know, change font to Times New Roman, or save this document as a template, things like that. Those are questions you will see. And if you look kind of down at the bottom of your screen, if you've never taken a test, it'll look like that. So let's look at some helpful tips for your students, and possibly for you if you haven't taken the test. You want to make sure, and your students want to make sure when they're taking the test, to complete each instruction or task using the simplest method that you know, because you're scored in 2010 on the finished product, not the method of getting to it. We all know that there's several different ways you can change font, and you don't get scored on which way you decide on. It's just if you get the right answer. So just use the simplest method you know, because you're trying to save time. Don't waste time if you don't know a question. Just skip it and make sure you're telling your students all these things. You have to be cognizant of your time, because you've got those 50 minutes, and if you've never done geometrics or you've never taken a test, you're not, most people are not used to that timing, and it sometimes produces a little bit of anxiety. I know it did with me. So you want to make sure, if you get to a question, don't spend a whole lot of time on that question. If you're stuck on it, just go ahead and skip it. And what it will do is it will move that question to the end of the exam, and you'll be able to come back to it. And reset will reset the question, not the time. It's important to know that too. Reset will reset the question, not the time. Also, if you look down at the bottom, you've got what it is, what the different options are, or the test mode options that you'll see on the 2010 test. You've got next, reset, and skip. You want to make sure that you go over these with your students before they take the test. It will be on the instructions for the test, but you got to make sure that they understand what each one of these test mode options mean. So next, like I said, we'll finalize the answer and score your question. You won't see that question again. Reset is going to refresh the question to clear any tasks you've already completed. And skip is going to send the question to the end of the exam and clears the work that you've done on that question. Just make sure that they know what all of these mean, because it is so important with the test. Something that Melissa and I found when taking the test and after our students took the test is on the test it will show what the students need to write, bold and underlined. And it always confused our students as to if they were supposed to bold and underline the text when they were typing it. And that's not the case. So in Certiport, when they give the test, anything the student is supposed to type is supposed to be bolded and underlined, but it does not mean the student is supposed to bold and underline it. So we always tried to make sure our students were aware of that before they took the test. You always want them to watch out for capitalization and spelling too, because it has to be exact for them to get the answer right. There were many times when students would just put an extra space or not capitalize, and they would get the whole question wrong. So it's important to go over all these different instructions with them before they take the test. And that's why I was saying I might go over it again with you at the end of April, just so that you could, it'll be fresh on your mind to tell your students. And one other thing is, often the test would freeze in our classroom, and the students would always freak out. It's important to tell them before the test starts that if your test freezes, just raise your hand and the proctor will come to restart the machine. And the good thing is the test will start in the same place and you will not lose any time. So it's important to tell them that so somebody doesn't jump up and scream, my test froze, and interrupt everyone else. So let them know that it does happen. Honestly, it happened a lot in our classroom. So make sure you let them know that beforehand. This is just a pretty slide that we made for the kids to kind of gain interest, I would say. So it's what I just told you, just more visually attractive. So this is going to be in the OneDrive for Georgia, where we keep all the webinars. This whole PowerPoint is going to be in there. So if you want to come and take this slide and show it to your students before the test, feel free. That's what we have it there for, is for y'all to use. But it's just got those same things we just talked about, next, reset, and skip, and then other important things for your students to know before they take a test.
Jennifer?
Yes.
I don't know if it's just my screen or if it was yours, but for a second there, it was just frozen. Like I think you were talking about one slide, but it had not progressed yet. But right now I'm looking at the colorful slide you were referring to.
Oh,
good. Is that where you're at right now?
Yep. Is it okay?
Just want to make sure. It
All
just
right.
Switched. I just want to make sure. Okay.
Thank you. So this is, if yours just switched also, this is the colorful, attractive slide that we show our students that feel free to use with your students, that looks just like, or it has the same information that I just went over with you, just in a more attractive way. Let me see. Okay, so this is 2013, and I'm not going to go real in-depth with 2013 today because it looks like everybody here, it has 2010 or they're testing in 2013. But what I do want you to know is if you are switching to 2013 in your school, it is a different test, and it's important to know that it's an entirely different format of a test. The whole certification test is a project that's going to be created from scratch. So like, in 2010, you have particular tasks that you need to complete. In 2013, it's a dependent task to create either a document or a PowerPoint or a spreadsheet, and it was changed, I was told, to this new format because that's what students would be doing in the workplace, is actually creating an entire document, not just completing tasks. So it is a entirely different format for 2013. This is kind of what it looks like. Notice it's quite different than 2010. And then it's got an example. Here's just an example of the instructions. You can see like there's an instructions tab, a references images tab, where you can go and look at what the finished project will look like, and then the individual tasks that you can check off as you complete. And here's some more helpful testing tips for 2013, which I'm just going to skip for now. And see if I'll do a poll for the next webinar and see if anybody's doing 2013, and I'll go over, but for now you don't really need that. All right, now for you as a teacher, as y'all are getting ready, what should you be doing? How do you get your students ready? Melissa had a 98% pass rate in her class, and these are some of the things that she would do to get her students, ready for the test. So And I know she would never tell you that, so I will. But here's some of the things, okay? MOAC. If you're using the MOAC book, which I know that some of you are, and I think Peggy said she was using it, MOAC has those certification-ready boxes in each chapter. What you want to, they're those little black boxes that have a task in there, okay? And that's going to signal to you where the specific certification objective is going to be covered. So that's real important for you and for your students because it will most likely be on the certification exam. So there's a few things you can do with those certification ready boxes to get your students ready for the exam. You can create a list of certification ready skills, like a checklist of all of those, and that's a good thing to do, but I prefer to create cumulative reviews, and Melissa did also, based on those certification skills. And then after the students would complete the cumulative review on those certification-ready boxes, for example, you'd have, I'm going to show you one in a second that we created, but cumulative reviews based on those certification-ready boxes, and then after the students complete the certification-ready review, it's kind of a tongue twister, you have them come up to the front for each task and make them show the class how to do it. And that kind of puts them on the spot to where they have to know how to do all of those different certification-ready skills. And that's how we made a lot of our cumulative reviews. And we have one that we put on the OneDrive in the webinars folder for you called Telephone Etiquette that we use for our students for Word 2010. So if you're testing in Word 2010, definitely print that out, get your students to do it. You've got the data file and the document. Also, it's really important to do timed reviews, especially if you do not have geometrics. So, you can time your students however you want to. You could time them with quizzes. What we did, or what we do is took projects from the book, like the MOAC book. So you go to the end of each chapter in the MOAC book and there's different projects. So what you could do is print out the directions from one of the proficiency or mastery or competency projects and print one out for each student and tape it backwards on each student's desk. And when they come in to class, have them sit down and pull up a data file, okay? And everybody has that data file on their computer, and then at the same time, when everybody's ready, you say, okay, switch over your instructions, and you need to complete that project. And what you do is you have a timer on the projector that gives them a certain amount of time to complete that project. And the students love it because it's competition. You love it because they're learning those skills that they need for the certification test. But I think the most important thing about it is that whoever wins needs to come to the front and show the students how they got the right answer in the shortest amount of time so everybody knows how to complete that project. So it teaches them that timed environment as well as it teaches them those specific skills that they need. I always give prizes. I know you're not supposed to give candy, but I love candy. So give prizes for the winners. It challenges them. And it's just a good thing to do, timed reviews are, to get them used to that timed atmosphere. The Backstage View scavenger hunt, I created that, and it was because when our students started taking the certification test, they said there was a lot of questions over a specific area called Backstage View that they didn't know. So I created that. We put it on the website for you also for your students to do. It's important for them to know Backstage View, which is under File in 2010. It's, how to save things as a template or, I'm trying to think of some of those questions. It's just a lot of different options that you're not used to using, or at least I was not and my students were not. So what I did is I created a scavenger hunt for them to go into Backstage View and figure out how to do those different skills. And that is, like I said, on the OneDrive in the Georgia Webinars folder. Okay, so those are some different ways you can practice. But, before the test, practice, practice, practice. But I'd say the most important thing is if you have it, geometrics. If not, you need to get that free 30-day download. It's not a hard download to do. But get it before your students test. It's very similar to the test, as well as it gets them used to what a testing environment would be, which is so important for their anxiety, for their stress levels, and just to know. So get G-Metrics if you can. If not, try to purchase it next year and get that free 30-day download. So those are some ways you can get ready to test. And then for testing, if you have not tested yet, definitely try to take a test because you will become more familiar with the testing environment and what's on the test. And I think that's one of the best ways to teach for the certification test because you know it better. And then, have your students test, and then after they test, remediate them. There's going to be a report that when the certification test is over, your student will have an immediate feedback, on if they passed or failed. Know that. And it's also going to show a score report. So at our school, students, we would have them look at the score report and understand, what their plan for remediation would be for the next test if you're going to let them test again. So on the score report, you can see a percentage of how well they did on a particular, set of skills. And so, they write that down, and then you can figure out how to remediate with them and retest. If it's available at your school, and you've got students, I think we had a cutoff point, like if they made at least a 550, because you have to make a 700 to pass. I'm not 100% sure. But we would remediate them and then retest. So that's kind of the whole thing Melissa was talking about teach it, test it, So that's what you could do if you have and I think most schools do our Certiport, have the Certiport site license now. So that's a good way to do it. So right now I want to stop for just a second, and I want to see what questions we have about the test or test-taking tips. So I know most of you are testing in 2010. I know that you're testing at the end of April or May. And I'm trying to look at some of the questions, but I want to know what questions you have. So feel free to type them in there and let us know. Oops, I hope that. Melissa, are you there?
I am.
Okay.
I had a little bit of a internet connectivity problem there for a minute or two, but I think I'm good now.
Okay, so it looks like they're testing at the end of April, May, and I was seeing if they had any questions, so I'm going to wait for a second and see if they have any questions. Lots of people are saying they'll keep us posted with questions they have, but I know this is a time right now where they're getting their labs ready.
Right.
And we're here for you for that. We're here for you to help you with test-taking tips. We've got those documents for you on the OneDrive, the IT Academy OneDrive, in the state-specific folders, Georgia, and the webinars, for you to go get those and use those. And we just want to know, we're just going to take a couple minutes and see if anybody has any specific questions for us. As we do that, I'm going to let you type them into the box, but as we do that, I wanted to show you some really good additional testing informational webinars that some of the ladies from Certiport put on. Let me see, was it Kevin? I think it's Kevin. Kevin, preparing for Microsoft certification exams, that's got a lot of information in it about setting up your lab. So that's a great, I think it's a 1-hour webinar that goes through that process and tells you about setting up your lab. So maybe that'll help you too. And then there's also a link to a webinar on using G-Metrics practice test software. And as you ask questions, as we wait for your questions, I just want to put up the resources slide. Right there, there's the OneDrive at the top, and that's where I'm telling you to go to the state-specific program folder for Georgia. And in the webinars, this is webinar number 6, you would go in and get those different documents I said that we put on there for you.
Jen, do you think you should go and just show them real quick where to go?
Yep, I can go in just a second. There's one question, Melissa. It says, any tips on building student confidence and reducing anxiety? Go ahead, Melissa.
Well, I'm just going to say geometrics is always a good thing, I think, with my students. When they, if you have geometrics, I would say use that, because the students, they know that that is very, very, very similar, really almost identical to what they'll see when they're actually testing. But when those students see that their scores are coming up with geometrics, they have that confidence boost. And then when they do pass those geometrics exams, I mean, they are pumped. They are so excited. So that is what I think helped my students. Jennifer, what do you think?
I think there's a lot of things. I think I try not to put a lot of, I mean, I know they're supposed to take the test. I know they're supposed to pass the test, but I don't, I try to pressure them. I always say, you know what, you need to try as best as you can, but this is your first time taking the test. It's going to be a new experience. If you don't pass it and you get a certain score, we're going to remediate you and we're going to try again. But it's kind of a fine line, because you want them to try really hard, but you don't want them to be overly anxious. And I think that's kind of the mom in me. And I would say, just like what Melissa said, do geometrics, do the telephone etiquette, cumulative review, do reviews where you kind of call them up in front of the class and make them do different projects or different tasks from the cumulative reviews, and just build their confidence, I think, through them getting answers correctly. And then beforehand, definitely show them the test-taking tips for 2010 and explain to them what the test is going to look like. But if you have geometrics, it looks a lot like the instructions and the test for geometrics. So that was a way that we definitely reduced anxiety and built confidence. I think our students had a lot of confidence. I feel like we were always building confidence, but I do know that a lot of them had anxiety. And it's just, common. But there are ways you can, definitely make them less anxious by just preparation, I would say. Do we have any other questions? I'm going to let you, as you type them in, I'm going to go to the internet on my computer, and here is the OneDrive, okay? So that first link on the resources, that's where that'll take you. This is IT Academy OneDrive. We talk about it all the time. It's because we use it all the time. But I'm going to scroll down to state-specific program folder. So I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to go to Georgia Schools. And you'll see right here, here's the Microsoft IT Academy webinars. Okay, that's where we put all of our webinars from this entire year for you to go back and use and have them as a resource. So I'm going to click in it. And today was webinar 6. And I'm going to click into webinar 6, and you'll see there's telephone etiquette. There's the actual data file. And then here is the cumulative review that goes along with it. And it's really helpful to, like I said, make these cumulative reviews based on those certification-ready skills, the little boxes in the MOAC book. And then after your students complete the whole cumulative review, then have them come up front, just call on them, randomly. Like, Margaret, come up and do the first one, Kevin, come up and do the second one. And they have to come in from the class and do it. And it makes them more inclined to do the cumulative review and try really hard on it the first time when they know they're going to be calling you up. Here's that Understanding Backstage View scavenger hunt that I created just because our students felt like they didn't know a lot about this particular part of Word. So that's there for you too. But that's how you get to it. The OneDrive, the state-specific program folders, Georgia Schools, webinars, and webinar 6. And you'll notice that in all the webinars we've put the PowerPoint we used and any other documents that we used within the webinar for y'all to try to help. Okay, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, to the resources slide. Do we have any more questions, Melissa? I think Melissa might have had a problem with her connectivity.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I'm here, Jen. I just I think we got all of them right now.
Okay, well, we're going to wait one more minute. It is 2 past, but we started a little late, so we're going to wait one more minute and see if anybody has any specific questions that we can help you with, because y'all are why we're here. We want to help you as best we can, so if you have any questions, please ask. And if you don't, you're welcome to go. We are so thankful that you're here and you're spending time out of your day to come with us and learn these things for your students, to get your students certified, and that means a lot, especially about you and how much you care about your students. So thank you all for coming, and we'll wait for just a couple more minutes and see if there's any particular questions we can ask. Okay, Melissa, I think that's it. I'm going to hit stop recording, okay?
That sounds good to me.
If I can find it. Tell me if you see it.
Stop recording.
Mm-hmm.
I see start recording.
Hold on. Yeah, I think I have to hit stop. I've just got to find it.
I see it at the start recording. I see it at the top of my little panel or whatever on the right hand side.
Well, are you under audience view or any of those different things?
I'm just looking at the top where it says, like, there's some buttons that say, like, show my screen, stop showing my screen, give keyboard and mouse. Right below there, mine says start recording. So I was thinking that maybe yours would say stop recording right there.
It doesn't.
And I can't see your little box, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. It makes sense. Lord, I don't know. I got it. I found it.
Okay, good.
Okay. Have a great day, Miss Melissa.
Okay, so did you stop the